Now to what could be a debt crisis brewing in our country. Household debt rising to record levels as more Americans struggle to pay the bills. Our chief economics correspondent, Rebecca Jarvis, is back now with more. Good morning again, Rebecca.
Nice to see you again, Robin. And Americans are taking on more debt, $17.5 trillion overall. $1.13 trillion of that is a record amount, and it's on credit cards. Plus, more people are falling behind on their payments because despite the strong jobs market, consumers are facing higher prices and much higher interest rates.
America, land of the free, home of the brave, and now a nation drowning in debt. From the flickering screens of Wall Street to the kitchen tables of Main Street, the weight of the collective financial obligations of Americans is becoming increasingly unbearable. The American dream, once a beacon of hope and prosperity, is now a mirage shimmering in the distance, always just out of reach for millions burdened by the shackles of debt. The numbers are dizzying. According to the latest quarterly report on household debt and credit, the Federal Reserve Bank of New York reports that the total household debt rose by $184 billion to reach $17.69 trillion. Mortgage balances increased by $190 billion to $12.44 trillion, while balances on auto loans climbed $9 billion to $1.62 trillion, continuing their upward trajectory. As typical for the first quarter, credit card balances declined, falling by $14 billion to $1.12 trillion. Nearly 9% of credit card balances and 8% of auto loans annualized transitioned into delinquency. It's a burden that weighs heavily on the shoulders of every American, a modern-day Atlas straining under the weight of a financial world gone mad. According to Experian, the average total consumer household debt in 2023 is $104,215. That's up 11% from 2020, when the average total consumer debt was $92,727. When Americans can't handle their debts, we see foreclosures, bankruptcies, delinquencies, and charge-offs. According to the American Bankruptcy Institute's most recent release, there were 89,224 bankruptcy declarations in the United States by the end of March 2022. Interestingly, that's 17% less than the number we saw at the same point in 2021. From the shiny credit cards in wallets to the mortgages that keep roofs over the heads of Americans, debt has become an inescapable part of modern life in the United States. But as the numbers keep climbing, as the bills keep piling up, one can't help but wonder, how long can this house of cards keep standing? In this video, we will consider on a granular level the triggering factors and rationales behind the spiking rate of consumer debts in the United States, such as the rising popularity of the buy now, pay later culture, growing mortgage debts, and increasing credit card debt. We'll also explore how these financial burdens affect everyday Americans and the potential long-term consequences for the economy. The history of consumer debt in the United States dates back to the early 20th century, when the rise of mass production in consumer goods like automobiles and household appliances created a demand for more accessible credit options. The post-war period saw a dramatic increase in consumer debt with the introduction of credit cards in the 1950s and the subsequent deregulation of the banking industry in the 1980s and 1990s. Credit cards provided a convenient way for consumers to access revolving credit, while financial innovation such as adjustable rate mortgages and home equity loans expanded borrowing options. A culmination of these historic events, including the dire impact of COVID-19, has no doubt set an unwelcome foothold for the exponential increase in consumer debt over the years. But why is debt such a problem? The answer lies in the insidious nature of its growth and the way it can quickly spiral out of control. When individuals and households take on too much debt, they become vulnerable to the slightest economic perturbations. A sudden job loss, an unexpected medical bill, a rise in interest rates, any of these can quickly transform manageable debt into a financial nightmare. Imagine debt as a snowball rolling down a hill. At first, it seems harmless, even manageable, but as it picks up speed and accumulates more and more snow, it becomes a behemoth, an unstoppable force that consumes everything in its path. That's the danger of unchecked debt. It can quickly snowball out of control, leaving financial destruction in its wake. This snowball effect is already impacting millions of Americans American households. According to a January 2023 report by Lending Club, a staggering 60% of Americans were living paycheck to paycheck at the end of 2022. This includes 45% of those earning over $100,000 per year. This means the majority of the population has little to no buffer against financial shocks. They're one missed paycheck, one car repair, one family emergency away from financial ruin. This is not the hallmark of a healthy, resilient economy. It's a house of cards ready to come tumbling down at the slightest breeze, and the winds of change are blowing. So what's fueling this relentless growth in debt? The answers are many and complex, but a few key factors stand out. The first is inflation. As the cost of living continues to climb, as prices for necessities like food, housing, and healthcare continue their inexorable march upwards, Americans are finding it increasingly difficult to make ends meet. According to data from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, the Consumer Price Index rose 6.5% in December 2022 compared to a year earlier, slightly cooling from the 9.1% year-over-year increase seen in June 2022, but still significantly higher than the Federal Reserve's 2% target inflation rate. Inflation is the silent thief. It sneaks into your wallet, stealing the purchasing power of every dollar, making the cost of living a little higher each day. For many Americans, the only way to keep up is to borrow. Borrow they have. One of the most troubling trends in recent years has been the explosion of buy now, pay later services. These services, which allow consumers to split purchases into smaller, more manageable payments over time, have seen a meteoric rise in popularity. According to a September 2022 report by the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the number of buy now, pay later or BNPL loans originated in the United States grew by over 1,000% between 2019 and 2021, from 16.8 million to 180 million. The allure is understandable. In a world where wages are stagnant and costs are rising, the ability to break a large purchase into bite-sized chunks can be a lifeline, but that lifeline can quickly turn into a noose. Buy now, pay later or BNPL for short offerings often charge high interest rates, and the ease of use can lure consumers into taking on more debt than they can handle. Miss a payment and you could be hit with late fees and penalties that quickly snowball. The BNPL boom is just one symptom of a larger problem: the growing disconnect between wages and the cost of living. While inflation has been eating away at the purchasing power of the dollar, wages for many Americans have remained stubbornly stagnant. According to data from the Economic Policy Institute, the average hourly wage in the United States, adjusted for inflation, has barely budged over the last 50 years. Meanwhile, the costs of housing, healthcare, education, and other necessities have skyrocketed. The median home price in the United States, for example, has jumped from around $32,200 in 1973 to over $420,800 in the first quarter of 2024, according to data from the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis. Even adjusted for inflation, that's an increase of nearly 140%. For millions of Americans, this growing gap between income and expenses has meant a reliance on credit to make ends meet. Credit card debt, one of the most expensive forms of consumer debt, has exploded in recent years. According to data from the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, total credit card balances in the United States reached $986 billion in the fourth quarter of 2022, an increase of $61 billion from the previous quarter. That's the most significant quarterly increase in the 20-year history of the data. Meanwhile, the average credit card interest rate is 27.65%, according to Forbes Advisor's weekly credit card rates report. The Federal Reserve keeps tabs on U.S. consumers' average interest rates for various financial products, credit cards included. As per the Federal Reserve, the average credit card interest rate in the U.S. on accounts with balances that assessed interest was 22.63%. For consumers carrying a balance from month to month, that can translate into a crippling debt spiral. Making only the minimum payment on a $5,000 credit card balance at 20% APR would take over 30 years to pay off and cost nearly $14,000 in total interest. However, credit cards are just one piece of the debt puzzle. Another major contributor to the growing debt burden is the rise in mortgage debt. According to data from the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, total mortgage balances in the United States reached $11.92 trillion in the fourth quarter of 2022, an increase of $254 billion from the previous quarter. This surge in mortgage debt is partly driven by the red-hot housing market. Despite rising interest rates, home prices have continued to climb in many parts of the country, forcing buyers to take on larger and larger loans. According to data from the National Association of Realtors, The median existing home price for all housing types in March 2023 was $375,700, up 3.7% from March 2022. In 2024, this price reached $393,500 in March, up 4.8% from the same month a year earlier. At the same time, wages have not kept pace with these rising costs. The result is a housing market that is increasingly unaffordable for many Americans, particularly first-time homebuyers and those in lower income brackets. According to the National Association of Realtors Housing Affordability Index, the median income needed to purchase a median-priced home in the United States as of May 2024 is $110,900. Compared to the last 4 years, that's a roughly 50% increase. For those who do manage to purchase a home, the burden of mortgage debt can be crushing. A study by the Urban Institute found that in 2021, the median mortgage payment consumed 28% of the median household income, up from 26% in 2020 and the highest level since 2008. The consequences of this growing debt burden are far-reaching and potentially devastating. Households burdened by debt are less able to save for emergencies, invest in their futures, or contribute to the broader economy through consumer spending. They're also more vulnerable to economic shocks such as job losses or medical emergencies. At a macro level, high levels of consumer debt can act as a drag on economic growth. When a large portion of the population is focused on paying off debt rather than spending or investing, it can lead to a slowdown in economic activity. This is particularly concerning in the face of potential economic headwinds such as a recession. Moreover, the debt burden is not evenly distributed. Lower-income households and communities of color often face higher barriers to accessing affordable credit and are more likely to fall prey to predatory lending practices. According to a 2022 report by the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, Black and Hispanic borrowers were more likely to be denied credit or offered higher-priced products than their white counterparts, even when controlling for credit profile. This unequal debt burden can exacerbate existing economic inequalities and hinder economic mobility. It's a self-reinforcing cycle. Those with the least resources are forced to take on the most expensive debt, which in turn makes it harder for them to build wealth and achieve financial stability. Make no mistake, this is no mere economic downturn, no temporary blip on the radar. This is the harbinger of a catastrophic reckoning, a perfect storm of rampant consumerism, predatory lending, and the unbridled greed of those who have held the reins of power. The once shining beacon of hope and prosperity, the American dream, hangs in the balance. Ultimately, the fate of the American dream will be decided not in the halls of power or the trading floors of Wall Street, but in the everyday choices and actions of millions of citizens. It's how they choose to spend and save, how they demand accountability from the leaders and institutions, and finally, how they redefine success and prosperity for a new era. If you like this video, hit the like button and help us spread the word. And don't forget to subscribe to get notifications on our latest news and analysis. In the meantime, check out one of these videos here to learn more. Thanks for watching.